Bears, blog, boys, you know it all, computer, analytic, geeky nerds. Michael Schneider, Tom Cavanaugh, the Bear, blog, boys, know-it-alls. Doing some podcast somewhere. Nobody wants to hear you. Geeks, you pencil-pushing, skinny jean-wearing geeks, you.
Coming to you live from our mom's basement, this is the Bears Blog Boys podcast. I am your co-host, Tom Cavanaugh, here with my good buddy and other co-host, Michael Snyder. Snyder, we weren't able to do a full review of the Bears-Steelers game. We're definitely going to talk about it a little bit here. But, man, we were together watching the game. We should have honestly just went live right after because it was such an intense game. We were together. Yeah, buddy, I mean, that was one of the most intense Bears games I can remember in quite some time.
Oh, yeah, no, it was definitely intense. Another roller coaster of a game that we do squeak out. It's like week in after week out, like the Giants game, the Vikings game, and the Steelers. It's just been the same recipe. Again, make you want to rip your hair out. But again, you can't be mad at the dub. The Bears are 8-3, and nonetheless.
Yeah, I mean, it's insane just looking back on the expectations for the season to now and where the Bears are for their record perspective, being 8-3, being the third seed in the NFC, being at the top of the division right now. I'm not saying I ever thought this was like out of the question, but definitely not the outcome I expected, especially in year one of Ben Johnson's tenure so far. So, I mean, you just have to be thrilled with where the Bears are at. I think this is a great spot to be in, and they've won outside of like the Ravens game, I think. And I guess if you want to say the first Vikings game, they've won all the games they should have won. So heading into this really tough stretch that they're about to head into, winning those games is really going to matter if they do drop a couple, whoever those games might be. But also, Snyder, heading into this Eagles matchup, which is what we're going to be mainly talking about today, I do feel a lot better. I feel like the Bears actually could have a chance in this game. It's not like in years past where the moment the Bears hit any type of adversity against a better team, you kind of just know that they're not going to come through. I feel a little different about this game. I think the Bears actually do have a chance. And yeah, if the Bears can keep this win streak rolling, it'll be really, really they'll be in just even better shape right now and really be in charge of their own destiny. But before we get there, Snyder, about this just Eagles preview game, let's talk a little bit about what we saw against the Steelers. So I thought the offense, in terms of their success, I would give most of that credit to Ben Johnson. I thought this was one of Ben Johnson's best games as a play caller. What were you thinking though when we were watching the game?
Yeah, he was in his bag as a play caller. Tom, what I actually have grown to love about this offense, I know the fantasy players won't like this. I like that we can hit you in so many different ways. We're not a predictable style offense, right? Earlier in the season, it was primarily Rome, but now you're seeing, you're seeing the run game get more involved. You're seeing Luther Burden getting more involved. You're seeing DJ Moore get more involved. And then you're seeing Colston Loveland, making his presence known. And then when you have all of that, it makes Ben Johnson's job easier. It makes Caleb, get rid of the ball quicker, helps out your, undrafted free agent left tackle, helps out your second round offensive tackle making his first start. So to see all of that kind of not fully come together, but seeing, a little bit more consistency, seeing flashes of all that come together, you're seeing it more and more. And like, that's kind of my main takeaway of the Steelers game in regards to the offense, that like, hey, even if Caleb doesn't have his best game, he's shown that he has a high enough floor to, operate this thing to where it can be effective, and you're putting up, 30 points a game. So yeah, I mean, that's my takeaway there.
Absolutely. I thought I really liked just kind of how, I wouldn't say he took the game out of Caleb's hands, but he made it as simple as it needed to be against the Steelers defense. That's pretty predictable. That's the best way I think I could frame that. Because with the Steelers defense, you know what you're going to get. You're going to get a lot of middle of the field closed. You're going to get a lot of cover 3. You're going to get a lot of man coverage. That's what they run. That's what they do. And I thought Ben Johnson called the plays according to that defense, right? Like that's what they were going to get. And that's why you saw so many of those plays where Caleb literally just turns his back to the defense on those play action plays and the ball is out, right? Because he knew exactly what he was going to get. And that's the game that Ben Johnson called for. And then on some of the times the Bears made mistakes, whether those were penalties, I think most of them were penalties, or like negative runs. I thought the screens that Ben Johnson were calling were like some of the best plays I've seen all season, where the Steelers just had no idea what the Bears were doing. And every time that they dug themselves in a hole, the Bears on those second down plays, the second down screens, they were always able to get out of them. So again, credit to him, credit to the Bears offensive line and obviously receiving group. Like you said, all those guys kind of being tapped into and showing that the Bears can beat you with all of them is a very fortunate thing. Yeah, the fantasy players, like you said, might not be thrilled about that, but they all have their different skill sets. They all have their different ways they can help contribute. And we kind of saw that in this past game. Loveland and DJ Moore in the red zone just being kind of hard to fully cover, and being for Loveland's sake, just being too big, right? He literally just like throws Kyle Duggar off of him, gets the leverage and scores that touchdown. DJ Moore kind of the same way. So yeah, there was a lot to be excited about the supporting cast in this game. As for Caleb, I liked how he was more decisive. Like that's a good thing. I don't think there were many moments where he was just sitting back there and holding onto the ball and trying to create against a pretty good Steelers pass rush. So that is a good thing, I think. But overall, Senator, I thought it was a pretty mixed bag. It was, of the games I've charted of his so far, it was not one of his best for me. I just thought, if you're looking in the grand scheme of things, those plays that I talked about of, okay, the Bears are going to just dial up this play where it's going to allow Caleb to get the ball out of his hands really quickly, because the defensive look the Steelers are showing, they're going to end up being there post snap. I thought he missed too many of those throws. I thought that, like, I wouldn't call them layups, but they're about as easy gimme throws as you're going to get. The easy gimme throws that are valuable, they're about as easy and gimme as you're going to find in the NFL. And I thought he missed too many of those. And that's the thing. Like, if the way Caleb's playing right now is a pretty risk adverse type of style. So if you're not going to take a lot of chances down the field, or like make a lot of high level throws 20 yards past the sticks, you better be pretty precise on all of the other stuff, right? On all the other intermediate stuff. And I just thought it was too up and down, right? There was too many misses there for me to say that, because I got a lot of crap for this on Twitter, for me to say that this was a strong game. I think this was more of a mixed game than anything.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the box score, he had 250 plus, 3 passing touchdowns. You'd say, hey, that's pretty admirable, affecting your quarterback first year in the system. But the thing is, now a lot of people like get mad when you call a spade, and it's like me. We watched quite a few games together this year. It's not like the Bears win and oh, Caleb doesn't have a bad game. Oh, I can't enjoy this. I don't know. It's not. No one's doing that. We are high fiving each other. We are fired up for a Bears win through and through. But you do your due diligence. You grind the film, and you see you just want Caleb to clean things up, and there's nothing wrong with pointing that out. Here, if you want to be totally honest, and don't get me wrong, I am loving this wave. I'm enjoying this roller coaster of a season. It's been one of the funnest Bears seasons that we've covered and been since we started this. But look, take the last 3 games for example, right? Caleb kind of up and down, same game. These wins in that style, you can get away with it when you're playing against Jackson Dart, Russell Wilson, and they're struggling to push the ball forward. You've seen how J.J. McCarthy was struggling to move the sticks, push the ball forward. And the same thing with Mason Rudolph. Most of their production came from the run game, screens. Like I don't think Mason Rudolph attempted, more than a few passes that actually traveled more than 10 yards. It was very, very minimal, right? So these mistakes, missing these layups, sailing these balls that probably should have been intercepted, you can get away with it maybe against those quarterbacks. You can't carry that over into the stretch against the Eagles, against the Packers, against the Lions, 49ers. Like you're not going to be able to get away with, that luck or get away with those turnovers against these teams that have been there, have stable quarterback play, have, winning head coaches. It's not gonna, the odds against you aren't gonna be as high against these premier teams, is what I'm saying. And all we're trying to say is, hey, he just needs to clean it up. Are we panicking on him? No. Are we panicking on the season? No. We just want a little bit more consistent play, against these better teams.
Absolutely. And I think in this game specifically, like I just went back and watched the Cowboys game from this past week. And I think the Cowboys actually had a very similar game plan in terms of what the Bears did against the Steelers. Like, I don't think you get the same, we'll pull up the coverage data and stuff like that. I don't think you get the same kind of looks from the Steelers. Like the Eagles disguise way more. And they're just a tougher defense to figure out. And that's honestly going to work against the Bears, obviously. But that's just a need for Caleb to be more precise. But the throws that Dak is just putting on his receivers, like where it's literally like the only place they can get him. Like that's against the best teams, against Quinyon Mitchell, against Cooper DeJean. That's what you need to do, right? Like that's, they're not going to be as open as they were in this game. And that was the problem with me. It's like, they are wide open. Like you need, okay, I understand if it's not like perfectly in stride. And there were a couple throws like that as well, where like Rome still caught a slant that was behind him and stuff like that. It's like I understand if they're not right on the receiver, but they need to be in a chance where they can catch them. They can't be behind them. They can't be over their heads. And that was what was happening a lot of the time. So again, that's why I was a little lower on this game. And then also the sack that he takes is just a totally unacceptable play. You can't take that sack. He had all day to throw. And he kind of just waited in the end zone and ended up fumbling and allowing the Steelers to score. Imagine if that play doesn't happen, the Bears probably win this a lot more handily than they did. So that's kind of where I come down on. There were too many misses, and there were two, I think, pretty egregious turnover-worthy plays in this one that you would definitely like to avoid. Were there a handful of good throws? Absolutely. But it's really in this offense where it is more about efficiency than, even though they are explosive, but they're not explosive in the ways that they are just literally scoring in one play. They're explosive in that they're getting like 10 to 15 to 20-yard gains on every other passing play. You're going to have to be more efficient, I feel like, to really run this offense to optimal ability. And we've seen Caleb can do that throughout the stretch of the game. The Giants game, I thought he did that really, really well. We've seen that he's been able to move the ball down the field. I just think that when those layups and gimmies are there, you can't miss them at the degree he did this past game, right? It's just one game. I'm not saying that Caleb can't play. I've been actually very, I think, pretty positive about where Caleb is in his development. So again, this is not like a blanket statement saying, "Oh my God, it's time to panic about Caleb Williams." But like you said, let's call a spade a spade. Like let's grade him to the degree that we should our starting franchise quarterback. Like I think we're past the point of protecting him and sugarcoating things. Like it's past that point, Snyder. I think we need to just be fair and call it what it is.
There's nothing wrong with having high standards. If we're 8-3, the playoffs are on our mind, right?
Right.
You have this tough stretch of the schedule. You want to go to the playoffs, and you want to win in the playoffs, right? You have to clean that stuff up, right? Like that's stuff that, hey, playoff football against these premier teams, these premier coaches, premier defenses, you have to play a very clean game, and you have to play better if you want to win. That's my goal. That's the standard that I want the Bears to be at. It's been so long since we played meaningful football that, hey, a sack like that in the end zone where you give up a touchdown, that could make or break a playoff win or a loss. That's how crucial it is. That's the way I evaluate it. Like, wait a minute, you can't do that in the playoffs. You're gonna look like a jag. So again, I criticize it now because the standards in the playoffs, that little nitpick, that small, or not a small mistake, but that one moment could cost you the game. That's why, again, all that stuff is so crucial from your quarterback.
It most definitely is crucial. And against a team like the Eagles, a team like the Packers, it's going to be way harder to come back from that because they're well, the Eagles will talk about their offense, but their offenses are better. Their defenses are better. You're not going to get it's not going to be as easy to move the ball against them because they're just a tougher defense. Like, I think the Steelers, I think we talked about it before the game. They're a very kind of vanilla defense. And this next stretch of games, you're going to get anything but vanilla. And we'll talk right about the Eagles defense, Snyder. So heading into this game, the Eagles defense currently from an EPA per play standpoint, and I'm sorry if I like not reiterate, but kind of beat the EPA per play stuff like a dead horse. I don't mean to do that, but I think it is a really good way to measure how efficient defenses and offenses are. So EPA is just basically an efficiency metric. Ben Johnson talked about it at the beginning of the season. It is very indicative of which teams, if you're good in those stats, which teams are being successful. So if you're just looking at the Eagles defense, they're the sixth best defense in EPA per play allowed. They're the seventh best pass defense in EPA per play allowed, and the ninth best rushing defense EPA per rush allowed. So this is a really strong unit, Snyder. This was what kind of won them the Super Bowl last year. They were even better last year, but again, this is no joke. It's not like they've taken a major step back. They're basically top 10 in everything if you want to look at it across the board. They're very talented defensive line, but they're even more talented in the secondary. People don't really realize just how good they are on the back end. So this is a tough defense, Snyder, and we know their defensive coordinator all too well, Vic Fangio. He really knows how to call a defense, how to make things tough on opposing quarterbacks.
Oh, yeah, and he's going to do it.
Yep.
And, again, the Eagles, but Howie Roseman is the best GM in football. I could probably make a whole entire podcast episode about that, but man, they got some dogs, man. I mean, here, Quinyon Mitchell, Cooper DeJean, Nicole Dean, Zach Bond, Sidney Brown, Reed Blankenship, everyone is in their back seven are just some dogs. They acquired Jalen Phillips, who's just been huge for this pass rush. So, Tom, just from an on paper talent standpoint, it's going to be one of the best defenses that we've played. And then you combine that with Vic Fangio just being that elite coordinator. It's not going to be an easy match. I mean, I even forgot to mention Jalen Carter as well, who we passed up on. Again, I think it actually worked out. That debate, I think, has been a little bit more in the Bears' favor, getting Darnell Wright and the way he's emerged. So that'll be interesting to see maybe that matchup go. But yeah, it's a tough test ahead.
It's 100% a tough test. Their front is a problem. Jalen Carter, you're definitely gonna have a plan for him on how you kind of want to approach him. You can't let him wreck this game because he can very well do so. So you definitely have to have two bodies on him. You definitely have to have extra attention. I think, Snyder, when it comes down to looking at this defense or looking at how the Bears could attack this defense, I think honestly what the Bears want to do on offense kind of falls in line with where this defense has struggled a bit. They play a lot of everything. They're not like Vic Fangio's defenses are kind of known for two eye safeties, which they do a ton of. And I think pre-snap, that's really what they lean into more than any other team. I was just looking at how they defend runs. They are in light boxes against run plays on 60.5% of their snaps, which is the most in the NFL. So pre-snap, they are in light boxes almost all the time. And that's what Vic Fangio's defenses are known for. But they run a bit of everything. I think they disguise things really well. They drop safeties down. They run cover three. They run man coverage. I think that's a different wrinkle than what we've seen from Vic Fangio in the past because they really trust their corners. Quinyon Mitchell, Cooper DeJean, they're legit. You can run man with them. And I think where they've struggled is against motion and with the play action, right? I think if you can kind of get the motion to indicate what coverage they're in, which we know Ben Johnson likes to do a ton of, and then run play action to kind of blitz them and stay and be on the offensive and not let them dictate their looks to you. I think that's when we've seen they've struggled. They're actually the worst. I tweeted this out yesterday. They're actually the worst defense against play action passes. So that falls right in line with where the Bears want to attack and what the Bears want to do. But again, that comes back to Caleb has to clean up those intermediate passes he missed a couple of them. I think he's got to be a lot more consistent in order to orchestrate this plan and really make them pay where they're weak at against a better defense and definitely a tougher one in terms of what they're in to figure out.
Tom, what I like most about when we're running a lot of play action, I think Caleb is a lot more quicker. It's a lot quicker
Yes.
when he's coming out of the play. He just make it to where when he's not, you kind of see he holds the ball a little bit longer. But when he's coming off that play action, he is so decisive and just fires that ball in there. Yeah, you got to be a little bit more accurate. But I've seen him plenty of times where he showed like, hey, coming off that, he's just absolutely dealing in the middle of the field, delivering a strike. I think he's seen it a lot in was it the Giants game where I think DJ Moore had that big drop, Luther Burden had that big drop. I think both of them came off of play action, just firing it in there with anticipation. Your receiver has to come down with that. But I think if he plays that style, I think that could really be a strength.
Yeah, it's definitely where he's most comfortable right now. Like he is so locked in, for better or for worse, over the middle of the field right now, and that's a good thing, I think, ultimately, because that's where he needs to be locked in this offense. So I'm willing to like kind of live and die by that's where he's looking to throw the ball, and that's how this offense functions. So I respect what he's trying to do. I respect his willingness to attack those areas, to attack those windows. I think as long as he masters that, that's always going to be positive. The play action game, I think, allows you to do that because you're getting those linebackers to bite forward and it opens up that space in the middle of the field. So yeah, I appreciate what he's doing right now in terms of where he's going with the ball. I think there are a couple times where he's maybe a little too locked in and he kind of leaves other throws on the field. But against this defense, I think you can kind of get away with that. That's where this defense is weak. They're going to run a bunch of middle of the field open coverage or even cover 3. You can get away with that. I think you can. That's where they're weak. That's where Dallas just kind of went over and over and over again. They kept kind of attacking that intermediate part of the field. And towards the end of the game, it allowed them to get back in the game and obviously win the way they did. I also saw, just like watching Dallas, I thought they had, in both games, had a really good game plan against the Eagles. And every time they were in man coverage, Snyder, whenever they caught the Eagles in man coverage, they are going after Adoree Jackson. Adoree Jackson is like ranked one of PFF's lowest ranked corners right now. I think he's like 108 of 110. And he's ultimately the weak link of this defense. If you can catch him in man coverage against one of your better receivers, and the Bears have a lot of good options to go to, I think that's when you have to make them pay down the field, because that happened with George Pickens. That happened with CeeDee Lamb. They had 2 big explosive plays against man coverage in this past game. So I think that's another element too. Like Ben Johnson doesn't always have plays dialed up down the field, but when you do catch the Eagles in man coverage, Adoree Jackson's the guy you want to get after.
No doubt about it. And Tom, I know we haven't talked too much about the offense, but Tom, I mentioned it against the Steelers. How you kind of see everyone getting a lot more involved. And you talk about Rome, like the man beater, right? You talk about Luther Burden, who you're, manufacturing touches for, and you see his just game-breaking ability, speed. I think he has ability as a route runner, man beater, but he's just not there yet. But you're finding ways to get him open, and then you have DJ Moore, who's just rock solid. Don't forget about him, but then also you got Colton Loveland, the mismatch, who again on the film during the game, the eye test just tells you this guy's a damn good football player, right? The ball skills, everything that he does, and his yak ability. It's funny, right? He doesn't have he's not really movie with it, right? He's not like shaking and baking you, but the guy's like a locomotive, right? He's running straight at you. He's moving at a special speed, and there ain't much that's gonna slow down that train coming at you. So I just love how this offense has so many different ways to attack you, right? Attacks a specific style of defense. And then, I'm not even mentioning the run game. If that gets going, what that also will open up in the play action that you're alluding to. So, when I talk about these Bears wins, there might be a little fluky. It's up and down. If this thing on offense, combined with Ben Johnson and Caleb playing a little bit more consistent, that's why I'm so optimistic that we can actually hang with anyone. If Caleb cleans it up and we just play a full in sync game.
Yeah, absolutely. Different ways they can beat you in the passing game. I really think it's just about like, yeah, the consistency. Could Caleb hit the guys that are open? And we've seen he can do that. Like it's just, it comes in waves where there'll be spouts of inaccuracy. And I feel like against the Eagles, you really need to be as consistent as you possibly can be, because this is a defense that will make you pay for your mistakes. So and what the Eagles do so well is, while here I can pull up their coverage numbers. I added it actually. While they are like pretty diverse in their coverages, they disguise everything. Like everything changes post snap. So what you're seeing before the snap is rarely ever what actually is the coverage after the snap, and that's like a Vic Fangio trademark. That's what everyone around the league kind of took from him, is that the disguises are so good, they're so late to rotate that it's really hard to figure out. And that's why I'm hoping that if the Bears can get this run game going, they can start implementing all the motions that they like to do. That will just give the Caleb and this offense easier tells of what the Eagles are in, because if the Bears are running the ball well, the linebackers, the safeties, they're not going to have time to disguise. They're going to have to try to fill the run, right? And that's a really important element of this game. And that's another thing about the structures of this defense, is the safeties are so important against the run because how light of boxes they play with. If like the Eagles safeties aren't coming down to fill right away, that's when you actually can gash them against the run, against those lighter boxes. They're about league average at defending the run in light boxes in terms of efficiency. So I think that's kind of have to be what the Bears are hoping for. I don't think you're going to rip off any long runs against this team, but just kind of the gradual moving the chains, ripping off the 5 to 6 yard runs over and over again, keeping the defense honest to where they can't just tee off against your passing game, because they will tee off against your passing game. We saw that in the Super Bowl, right? The Chiefs had no type of run game whatsoever, and they couldn't do anything through the air because the Eagles just knew what was coming. So, yeah, I think that's going to be a tough test in this one. I don't think the Bears are going to have one of their best days on the ground, but it's just to the point, can you do it to where, okay, the Eagles have to think twice about it? And I think that allows the Bears to do everything they want to through the air.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that's all you really need, right? You just need them to be consistent 5, 6 yards. Like that is how you're gonna wear and tear that defense, keep them guessing, and build off that. Combined with the creative things that Ben is gonna do. Again, I think the Bears are 7-point underdogs on the road here. I know maybe it's wishful thinking, but again, when I look at this offense, and I'm going to keep saying I'm not like a broken record, that's why I'm so optimistic that the Bears can hang with the Eagles here, because the offense, there's just so much that you could do that, hopefully if, we play a clean game, mistake free, and it could all come together for a whole entire game for the first time, I do think we can hang with anyone.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be closer than maybe the 7-point spread. And I can kind of allude to why I think it's going to be closer. I think that the Bears defense has obviously really struggled, Steiner. I think, last week we kind of saw that the Steelers were really able to do exactly what they wanted to, because the Bears were so banged up everywhere, right? Like they were down. Tyreek Stevenson went out in this game. Ruben Hippolyte, like 2 plays into the game, he's hurt. And then I think their next linebacker also got hurt as well. So the Bears were just so extremely banged up in this one. And it's probably going to be some of the same against this Eagles offense. But the Eagles offense has not been what it was last year. Saquon Barkley had 17 20-plus yard runs last year, and he's only had 2 this year. So I don't know necessarily like I think the offensive coordinator change obviously is a big factor in why they have not had as much success. But I'm not as scared as I would be heading into this year with this matchup against the Eagles offense, because I think that they've had they're definitely their rocks in the road in terms of figuring out what they're good at. I think really where you want to just avoid with this Eagles offense is obviously you just hope that they can't get their run game going like they haven't been for most of the season. But you really don't want to just allow their talented players to be better than your talented players, because that's where I think you can run yourself into trouble. Like if you were in a bunch of man coverage which Dennis Allen kind of wants to do, but he hasn't been able to do that in recent weeks because of how banged up the Bears have been. That's where I think you can get yourself into trouble, right? And that's when I think that A.J. Brown can dunk on you. Devonta Smith can get over the top of you. And that's ultimately what Jalen Hurts wants to do anyway. He wants to throw those go balls to those really talented receivers. This is a game where you just sit back, play a lot of zone. Don't let Jalen Hurts throw it over the top of you. And ultimately, where I think he struggled, and Matt Eberflus, ironically, has had his number, is just firing up those zone blitzes. Right? I'm comfortable leaving voids in the middle of the field and allowing Jalen Hurts to try to figure that out and throw over the middle of the field, which he does not like to do. And yeah, that's how I'm going to heat him up, because this Eagles offensive line isn't as good as it was, but it's still a pretty good pass protecting offensive line. And I don't think the Bears have the defensive line talent to really just win organically with 4. But if Dennis Allen can continue to scheme it up and blitz, bring those zone pressures and make things funky for Jalen Hurts, that's where I think you can kind of slow this offense down. And we saw that kind of work last week with the Cowboys. They were starting to get to him. They were starting to sack him. We saw it against the Chiefs too. Spagnuolo, I thought, did a really good job of that. So that's what I think the Bears actually have a chance of making life difficult for an Eagles offense, even though the Bears defense is incredibly banged up.
Yeah, that's what you're going to have to do.
Yeah.
I don't think you have a choice there. You're going to have to get creative. You're going to have to disguise a little bit there. I mean, Jalen Hurts is probably one of the best quarterbacks we've seen in a while, right? Probably, correct me if I'm wrong, Tom, probably since the Bengals game and Joe Flacco, in terms of just being that poised, experienced veteran that, hey, if you're not being creative with the pressures, and you give him all day to throw, he's going to make it pay. And I think that's what Flacco did and why we gave up. It was almost 50 points. Same thing with the Jared Goffs of the world. That when you're playing against that quarterback, it's because you're not winning with 4 and the defensive line is not generating consistent pressure, you're going to have to be creative, or else you're going to give them all day to throw, and the coverage is eventually going to break there. And they have too talented of players that you don't want to get those guys in open space and broken coverages or anything like that. So, yeah, you're going to have to play a very creative style of defense against Jalen Hurts.
Absolutely. While Jalen Hurts is a very talented passer, I think he's a pretty easy one to figure out where he wants to go with the ball. I think you have to be aware for those screens. You have to be aware for those RPOs the Eagles like to run. I think Dallas Goedert's actually had a lot of success at some of that stuff that I don't know, wasn't going to him in years past. So you got to be prepared for that. You got to stop the run game, even though I think that they've had their own issues getting the run game going. But here's an example, Sider. Only 14% of Jalen Hurts' passes have been in the intermediate parts of the field, right? That is the 39th, or I guess the second lowest among any quarterback in the NFL, with 20% of 97 attempts. So that's like an area of the field he doesn't want to throw in. And so I'm not really worried about putting defenders in that part of the field. And I think we saw the Cowboys, they had the same approach. Like, we're going to start blitzing linebackers. We're going to start blitzing our nickel, because we don't think that Jalen Hurts is going to continually gash us there and replace the blitz. And that's where I think that there is a game plan out there. There is a blueprint out there to make life difficult for Jalen Hurts. That's what I want to lean into. That's what I want to do to really, now that can all go out the window if they're able to run the ball, and you have to dedicate extra bodies to stop the run, which is very well possible for this Bears defense. They were not good at stopping the run last week. It's not like they were ripping off a bunch of explosive plays, the Steelers, but I feel like every time they ran the ball, Steiner, it was just 5 yards, 10 yards.
Oh, yeah.
They just kept chunking the Bears over and over and over again. I'm hoping it's a little better with Kyler Gordon seemingly back. He's such an important run defender. He's such an important player of being excellent in coverage and then being a very active run defender. So you're hoping that can improve a little bit, but there's only so much you can expect when, your four linebackers at the top of the depth chart are probably going to miss this game again.
Yeah, and that's a scary thing, right? So why the Steelers were hanging with us for so long in that game was because of those, they seems like every down they had like a second and short, right? Or a ton of them, right? And they're just consistently moving the chains. I think the first quarter the Bears had that 3 and out, and then they only possessed the ball one more time, and it was because of that run game. And if it wasn't in the run game, it was like wide receiver screens or like a little bit of motion, just like nothing that Mason Rudolph was like throwing forward or not. He wasn't pushing the ball forward at all. And then when you look at this Eagles team, they got some bigger horses that can probably make you pay in those situations. AJ Brown, Saquon Barkley, Devontae Smith. So that's why it might be a little bit scary. And hey, if the Eagles need like a tune-up game to get the run game going, it could very well happen against this Bears team. It's especially with all the injuries at linebacker. So that's what kind of terrifies me about this game. That could, if the Eagles do figure out this run game, it could get out of hand.
Yeah, that's definitely like I think the most worrisome part because like they're totally content to do exactly what the Steelers did and just continue
Yeah.
to run the ball if they're able to get those positive gains. The Bears defense has been better against the run in recent weeks, but yeah, I thought the Steelers just totally had their number. And again, that comes back to how injured they are. They don't have their best run defending players in the games right now. I'm curious to see when Kyler Gordon comes back. How does that affect Chauncey Gardner-Johnson? What is his role? Do they just run more dime? This is not really a team I want to run dime against a whole lot because they are willing to run the ball. They are willing to get heavier bodies on the field. So it'll be interesting. I'm curious to see how they want to counter that. Jalen Hurts can also be involved in the run game. They really haven't done that as much this year, but he's always someone you have to worry about as well. So yeah, I think stopping the run's obviously given against the Eagles, but if you can make them inefficient on the ground to where they start having to pass, right, and they can't get the little easy gimmick stuff that they do. I don't know if the Bears can do that. They couldn't do that against the Steelers. I struggle to believe that they can do that against the Eagles. But if that's that's the game script you can get them in, then I think that's when the Eagles have their most issues because they're not a good drop back passing team. So that kind of comes down to the offense being able to put points on the board, and that kind of comes down to their defense stopping the easy stuff that they want to tap into. Whether or not both things can happen, Snyder, is really the determining factors of this game.
Yeah. Again, that's why I'm really. It's hard. I am optimistic about this one time, but man, I think the Eagles, again, as much as their run game is struggling, they just got a lot. They got a lot of talent on both sides of the ball, especially on offense. They have probably a way more creative of a head coach than we just came across. I guess Mike Tomlin and Arthur Smith. Just given like the linebacker injuries, you're not sure what you're getting in the secondary. It is making me a little bit more worried.
Yeah, I mean, getting Kyler Gordon, getting Jalen Johnson back is huge. I think that just having someone you're a little bit more confident than Nick McLeod, who has played a lot in recent weeks because Tyreek Stevenson has gone out in both games in recent weeks. I think is always a plus. Just having Jalen Johnson is arguably the best player on this team. That's obviously always going to be a positive for this defense. But I think this is a game you probably want your linebackers to play in. And I don't know who's going to play. I have no idea because no one's practiced, right? TJ Edwards wasn't put on IR, but he broke his hand. He has a hamstring issue. I have no idea when he's going to come back. And I'm just looking at the Eagles rushing efficiency as a team. And look, it's been rough. It's been bad. So I'm not sure. Like it's been like, it's going to be the battle of the disappointing units, the Eagles offensive line versus the Bears defensive line. Who's going to be able to win that matchup? Can the Bears just hold their own and not, even if you're going to let the Eagles be efficient on the ground, the one thing that cannot happen is Saquon Barkley cannot have these like 40, 50-yard touchdowns. That's one thing you absolutely cannot happen because if that happens, you're going to lose this game for sure. So yeah, maybe they'll be able to gradually march their way down the field, but I'd rather have that than obviously Saquon Barkley breaking those long runs. That's when the Eagles become unstoppable because then you feel the need to dictate all of your attention toward the run game. And then that's when they can catch you lacking in the pass game and really throw it over your head.
Yeah, I wonder if they entertain. I don't had this dream, but I know Kyler Gordon and Jalen Johnson still ended up being inactive, where you have Kyler Gordon in the slot, you have Jaquan Brisker maybe inside at the linebacker position, you have Chauncey Gardner-Johnson back at safety as well. I mean, that sounds like it could be a little bit fun. I don't know how Brisker would be in that role, but given how desperate you are at the linebacker position, I mean, I could see that being just a little bit of fun and maybe just kind of have a lot more talent out on the field.
Yeah, I'm curious to see how they balance that because I personally would have Chauncey Gardner-Johnson stay on the field. I think he's better at safety anyway. And if you can get Brisker in more of a sub-package role where he's only playing towards the line of scrimmage, I think that's the best way to use him. If the Bears want to run a bunch of big nickel, like that makes sense, or dime in some fashion. But again, it's like this is not maybe the team you'd like to do that against. Like this is a team that ultimately wants to run the ball. They ultimately want to take advantage of your lighter looks. So it's tough. The Bears are in a tough spot. Their defense is banged up. They lack talent in the front. And it's this could be a challenging matchup for them defensively for sure. I mean, it was last week, and the Steelers offense from a talent perspective is a far cry from where the Eagles are at. But all right, Snyder, let's transition to our final predictions. So like you said, the Bears are 7-point underdogs on the road here. It sounds like we're a little bit higher on the Bears than I think the national media in Vegas are. But who do you have winning this game and why?
I have the Eagles winning. I think it's going to be 33 to 25. I do think I think the Eagles cover. I think the quarterback, the coach, just the experience, the talent all around. I think it's gonna come to the Bears unless we play just a fully unlocked offense where Caleb is consistent, Ben Johnson in his bag. We play mistake free, don't shoot ourselves in the foot. Unfortunately, I don't think that's gonna happen because we just haven't seen it yet. I gotta roll with the Eagles at home. I just think there's too much experience, too much talent.
Yeah, I mean, that's fair. I think the Eagles are also going to win this game. I think it'll be closer because, again, I don't know if we'll see a lot of firepower with the Eagles offense. They just really haven't been able to do that all year because I think they have coaching issues, play calling issues, just overall they're not as healthy as they once were. They're missing Lane Johnson. So I am going to pick the Eagles to win this game as well. I will say it's a 24-18. The Eagles will not cover. I'll give the Bears 1 point. I think for the same reasons. I think they're just the more established team. I just think ultimately, the Bears are too undermanned on defense. They're not going to be able to consistently stop this run game. That's where I'm at. If they weren't able to do it against the Steelers, the Eagles run game hasn't been good, right? And the Steelers run game has definitely been better as a team, but ultimately, I don't see it. I don't see how the Bears have the talent to stop them consistently to where they need to put all of this game on Jalen Hurts. If they can do that, then I like the Bears' chances a lot more to win this game. But This is a tough environment on a short week. I just think that I will lean towards the more established team, and the Bears will look to get right against the Packers. I believe they play next week in Lambeau. So, yeah, unfortunately, I will pick the Eagles to win this game as well.
Yeah, unfortunately, I have to agree. Hopefully, the Bears, obviously, we're rooting for the upset, but it's a tough task. It's probably the toughest task, since that Lions game. So, I mean, they have a tough battle in front of them.
They definitely have a tough battle in front of them. We'll see if they can take advantage of it. I hope this is a game center. The Bears are a lot more aggressive. Like I thought, that was something we haven't really talked about. I thought there was a couple 4 downs the Bears should have went for last week, even on that last drive before the punt, the last punt to give the Mason Rudolph that chance to come down the field. I thought that's a play or that's a situation. I would think Ben Johnson would go for it and be aggressive and keep the ball in his hands. Yeah. I don't think you can be coach scared in this one. This is a game you kind of have to win, go for the kill shot. And I'm hopefully that Ben Johnson realizes that against a better team with the Eagles.
Hey, and if we do come out and win this game, man, the talk across the nation, the talk across the division, everything, the really, 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 the Bears would get some respect. So again, a lot riding on this one, just in terms of getting that respect across the league amongst every fan base. So again, this could be a real big moment.
Absolutely. Most definitely. All right, y'all. Well, we will be back to recap this game at some point, maybe on Saturday, or I don't know, maybe Sunday, Monday. We'll be back at some point to recap this game, but we are hoping for a happy Thanksgiving to all of y'all and a happy Black Friday with a Bears W. So until we meet again, keep it real and bear down.
Bear down.